I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Today we're reading from the Gospel of John, chapter 7, and let's focus on verses 1 through 5. After this, Jesus traveled to Galilee, since he did not want to travel in Judea because the Jews were trying to kill him. And the Jewish festival of tabernacles was near. So his brothers said to him, "Leave here and go to Judea, so your disciples can see your works that you are doing. For no one does anything secret while he's seeking public recognition. If you do these things, well then show yourself to the world." For not even his brothers believed in him. John chapter 7, verses 1 through 5. One of the basic human needs is to be known. Knowing someone is more than acknowledging their presence or even spending some time together. It's more profound. And in a sense, the best example of personal relational knowledge was displayed in the Garden of Eden. The Bible says that Adam and Eve were naked, and yet they were not ashamed. That is, that they knew everything about each other, had nothing to hide, and were completely at peace with themselves and with God. And that era didn't last very long because sin entered the world. And since that time, every human being has been conflicted with the desire to be known enough to be accepted, and yet not known so much as to be rejected for being shameful. And Jesus had nothing to be ashamed of. And still, it must have been frustrating and saddening for him to know that his own brothers did not at that time understand who he was or what he had come to do. They were summoning a sign from him to see if he would usher in their expectations of the Messianic age. And they believed that Messiah would throw off Roman oppression. And their theology did not expect that Messiah would be crucified or that his death was intended to accomplish the opposite of their expectations. Victory would include the salvation of many of their enemies and not their enemies' destruction. You see, the age following Jesus' resurrection was designed by God to throw off the Jewish religious rule in Jerusalem as judgment for their spiritual misleading. And not only were the Romans not going to be overthrown by some Christian army, but God actually used the Romans as a tool of his judgment against Israel's spiritual pride for having rejected the Messiah. And Jesus knew that this was not an era to be ushered in lightly. Isaiah even had prophesied against Jesus' brother's mindset. Isaiah said this, "Woe to those who drag wickedness with cords of deceit and pull sin along with cart ropes. To those who say, 'Let him hurry up and do his work,'" speaking of God, "quickly, so that we may see it. Let the plan of the Holy One of Israel take place so that we can know it." Isaiah chapter 5, verses 18 through 19. Just as Jesus' mother could not usher in the beginning of Jesus' earthly ministry, well, his brothers could not hasten the completion of it. Similarly, I hear some believers speaking in such terms concerning aiding religious Jewish people, specifically a guy named Chaim Richman's Temple Institute, and his efforts to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem today. You see, these people believe that the rebuilding of the temple will usher in the Messiah's return. And to them I say, be warned, because we know that once that temple in Jerusalem is rebuilt, it will not be an era of joy, but of blasphemy and tribulation. And we should not seek to usher the Lord anywhere. Instead, we should simply pray as Jesus taught us, "Thy kingdom come and thy will be done." I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Check us out at groundworksministries.com.